Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are digging into a state that for many people is just a blur on the highway Haryana.
Right, a place you drive through. But what our sources show is that beneath that surface, it's arguably the most important geopolitical pivot in all of North India.
That's a strong claim. And the source material we're working from today is this really unique, exhaustive interview dossier. It treats Haryana as this dynamic system under enormous pressure.
Exactly. We're going to trace its story from the absolute depths of history, the cradle of civilization, literally all the way up to its struggles with modern digital governance and, frankly, explosive economic growth.
So our mission for this deep dive is to get to the heart of that central tension. How does this small, landlocked state balance its immense ancient history with just these relentless modern pressures? I'm talking about things like water scarcity, rapid industrialization.
And we have to start with its geography. You can't understand Haryana without it. It wraps around the nation's capital, Delhi, on three sides: north, west, and south.
That proximity, it's everything. It's the engine, but it's also, as you put it, the shackle.
It's the perfect double-edged sword.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Let's start with the positive side. We're calling it the Delhi magnet effect.
Yeah.
How does that actually play out on the ground?
Well, it creates what's known as the NCR boom. I mean, think about it. You're right next door to Delhi's massive market, its airport, its logistics, its centers of power.
So industry just flocks there.
It becomes a magnet. Gurugram, Faridabad, Sonipat, they've just exploded with investment.
And the numbers on that are staggering.
They really are. You have just two of those NCR districts, Gurugram and Faridabad, contributing something like 50 to 60% of the state's entire revenue.
Wow.
It's a huge, immediate economic win, but it's also what creates the painful flip side, the shadow effect.
Right, the shadow effect. So what are the costs? What's the price Haryana pays for being so close to Delhi?
There are three big ones. First is just incredibly uneven urbanization. All the resources, all the talent, all the big infrastructure projects, they get sucked into this very narrow NCR belt.
Leaving the rest of the state behind.
The western and southern parts, yeah. They remain largely agrarian, lagging. The second big cost is the transit burden.
Meaning all the traffic.
All the traffic. Haryana is the gateway to Delhi from Punjab, Himachal, J&K. So it bears the huge ecological cost, the pollution, the congestion from millions of vehicles that aren't even stopping there. They're just passing through.
And the third one you mentioned, crime, an administrative nightmare.
Precisely. Policing becomes incredibly difficult in that volatile triangle between Mewat, Gurugram, and Delhi. The state boundaries are so porous, it's easy for criminals to just swoop across.
It's a structural problem. Speaking of structure, I found this little geographical factoid in the sources really interesting. There are two districts that don't border any other state at all.
Ah, yes. Rohtak and the new one, Charki Dadri.
Right, Charki Dadri was formed in 2016. Why does that matter? Why carve out a new district like that?
It's all about what they call last-mile governance. It's much easier to manage welfare schemes, to ensure accountability in smaller, more focused administrative units. We'll see that theme come up again with their digital strategy.
Okay, let's pivot from geography, because
Yeah.
you can't talk about this land without talking about its incredible history. The sources call it the cradle of Indian civilization. Is that hyperbole, or is there something real to it?
Oh, it's very real. And it's all thanks to archaeology, really. For decades, the story of ancient India was all about Mohenjo-daro and Harappa over in the Indus Basin.
In modern-day Pakistan.
Exactly. But the discoveries at Rakhigarhi in Hisar district have completely upended that narrative.
So just how big a deal is Rakhigarhi?
It's now confirmed as the largest site of the entire Indus Valley civilization. We're talking over 350 hectares. That is bigger than Mohenjo-daro.
Wow. So the center of gravity might have been here all along.
It strongly suggests the civilization's heartland could have been in the Ghaggar-Hakra River Basin, the ancient Saraswati, right there in modern Haryana. And the DNA evidence is crucial. It shows this direct, unbroken line of ancestry right into modern South Asian populations.
It puts Haryana at the very center of that transition from the Harappan to the Vedic cultures.
It potentially does, yes. It changes the entire map of ancient history.
And that strategic nature just keeps going, doesn't it? All the way up to the Middle Ages with the battles of Panipat. 3 of them, 1526, 1556, 1761. Why always there?
It was unavoidable. It's all about military logistics and pure geography. Panapat sits directly on the Grand Trunk Road, the ancient Uttara Path.
The main artery.
The only artery, really. Any army marching from the Khyber Pass towards Delhi had to pass through that narrow corridor. It was about 80 kilometers out from the capital, which made it the absolute last line of defense for the emperor. You either stopped the invaders at Panapat.
Or they were laying siege to your city.
Exactly. Panapat was the arena by necessity.
That's fascinating. That continuity is striking. Okay, let's move to the next big paradox, the stress on the economy and the ecology. The state has what sources call a river deficit, no big perennial river running through it, and yet it's an agricultural titan. How?
It's sustained by sheer human ingenuity. It has one of the most extensive canal networks in the country, drawing water from the western Yamuna and Bakra systems.
But that success created its own monster.
It did. It created what we call the agroclimatic mismatch.
Okay, break that down for us.
Simple. Haryana is a semi-arid state. It's naturally suited for crops that don't need much water, millets like bajra, pulses, mustard. But because of the Green Revolution, and critically, the government's minimum support price, or MSP,
Farmers grow rice.
they grow water-guzzling paddy, and the consequence is catastrophic. The groundwater table in the central districts is just plummeting. 14 districts are now classified as dark zones, where water extraction is way, way higher than recharge.
So the state is profitable, but it's coming at this massive ecological cost.
That's the shocking truth of it. Haryana is, in effect, exporting its own groundwater in the form of basmati rice. It's an ecological disaster that's being subsidized by policy.
Is anything being done about it?
They're trying. There are schemes like Mera Pani Meri Virasat, which offers farmers about 7,000 rupees an acre to switch away from paddy. But the real solution has to be a zoning strategy restricting paddy to the floodplains where the water can actually recover.
So moving from the fields to the factories, we talked about that hyper-concentration of industry in Gurugram and Faridabad. What's the big infrastructure play to try and fix that imbalance?
The absolute game changer here is the Kunli-Manesar-Palwal Expressway, the KMP. You should think of it as the new economic spine of Haryana.
Right, I can see the connection. If Panipat was the historical corridor, the KMP is the modern one. It lets all that truck traffic bypass Delhi completely.
Exactly. It saves time, it cuts pollution in Delhi, but most importantly, it acts as an industrial necklace. The state is now actively developing new manufacturing hubs and logistics parks all along this expressway ring.
Spreading the wealth.
That's the goal. And that's why Maruti Suzuki moving its huge new plant to Karkota in Sonipat is such a big signal. It confirms that this KMP corridor is the future for balanced industrial growth in the state.
It's a fascinating transition from necessity to opportunity. The state is clearly adapting physically. What about socially and politically? Let's get into our third section, social engineering and the road to gold. Politically, the state's come a long way from that infamous Ayaram Gayaram era of defections.
A very long way. The focus now is on a kind of structural social re-engineering, specifically moving political power away from the handful of powerful Jat dynasties that have historically run the state.
And the strategy seems to be consolidating what they call the 35 Biradari. You should probably explain that term for our listeners.
Right. It literally means the 35 brotherhoods. Politically, it refers to a strategy of consolidating the votes and the power of all the non-Jat communities, the OBCs, the scheduled castes, all the various smaller groups.
So it's about broadening the base of power.
It's about democratizing it. By focusing policy on this diverse group, the leadership is challenging that old single community dominance and signaling that power is now accessible to a much wider section of society.
And the tool they're using to manage all this is highly digital, this Parivar Pechan Patra, or PPP system. What makes this family ID so revolutionary?
The PPP is this dynamic, single database for every family. It's the digital backbone for the entire welfare system. And its key innovation is something called auto-exclusion.
Which can...
It means the system automatically weeds out fraud. For example, if a family tries to claim they're below the poverty line, but the PPP database sees they have high electricity bills or are filing income tax, boom. They're automatically excluded. No ghost beneficiaries, no leaks.
Which makes the whole system financially viable.
Massively so. It allows for incredibly targeted direct benefit transfers. It makes complex schemes possible because the money only goes to people who genuinely need it based on real-time data. It's really quite impressive.
Okay, let's talk about the state's biggest cultural export, which has to be sports. And specifically, The global dominance in wrestling from the Akata culture.
The success here is sociological, not just physical. The akatas, the traditional gyms, they provide this incredible institutional discipline, a rigid routine that channels all that youthful energy.
But what was the technical shift that made them world beaters?
It was the move from traditional mud wrestling to mat wrestling. They're different sports, really. Mat wrestling has different rules, different techniques, and it allows athletes to adapt directly to what's needed for the Olympics.
And this feeds right into that incredible social change we're seeing, the Gunhat to gold medal story.
This might be the most revolutionary part of all. When a woman like Sakshi Malik wins an Olympic medal, it does more than any government campaign ever could. Suddenly, parents, even with deep patriarchal reservations, they see that sports is a pragmatic shortcut to a secure government job.
The job guarantee.
A Class 1 officer position. That's an economic security that just overrides all the old social constraints. It's driving a massive generational shift for women in the state.
And it's not just wrestling anymore. We see Bhiwani becoming Little Cuba for boxing, and then Neeraj Chopra's javelin gold.
Yes, showing that explosive power translates to field events too. But we have to look at the policy behind it all. This a very aggressive padaklao, padpow, bring a medal, get a job policy.
Which offers the highest cash rewards in the country. Now, if it's working, if it's producing medals and jobs, what's the downside?
The downside is twofold. First, you get what's called the mercenary risk. Athletes from other states switching their allegiance just for the big payday. But the bigger structural flaw is that the policy is top-heavy.
Meaning?
It showers money on the one person who wins the gold medal. But it often starves the grassroots system that's supposed to produce the next champion. You need to invest in the beginners, in local coaches, in diet, in facilities to build a strong base, not just a flashy peak.
That's a really important critique. So as we wrap this up, let's pull these threads together. What we have is a high-growth state that is also under immense ecological and social stress. Those 14 dark zones, high unemployment.
And it's trying to solve these 21st century problems with 21st century tools like the PPP database, while also leaning into its indigenous strengths, like the Akata culture, or promoting Bajra as a superfood.
Which brings us to the final takeaway. The core problem, the big conundrum for Haryana, seems to be jobless growth.
It's a classic case. The economic engines IT and Gurugram, the automated car factories, they're capital intensive. They create very high value, but also highly specialized jobs. And the local education system just hasn't kept up.
So there's a huge skills gap. The wealth is there, but the local youth can't access the best jobs.
Exactly. And that leads directly to aspirational unemployment. You have a lot of young people who have high aspirations. They want a stable government job, a prestigious corporate job, and they'll wait years for one, remaining voluntarily unemployed rather than taking lower skilled work.
And that gap between the rich state and its unemployed youth, that's the central tension.
It's the defining challenge for its future.
So we want to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to mull over. In a state like Haryana, where the economic engine is fueled by capital and the social engine is fueled by aspiration, can these massive new infrastructure projects, things like the Hisar Aviation Hub or the huge Global City project in Gurugram, can they finally align opportunity with that immense local talent pool? Or is that gap between the rich state and the unemployed youth just going to get wider?
Getting that alignment right will define North India's economy for the next decade.
Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.